Hello students, this is Dr. Vibha Tiwari, Assistant Professor of English, Chaudhary Balluram Godara, Government Girls College, Sri Ganganagar. Students, this video is for the Gyandu channel, an initiative of Commissionerate College Education, Rajasthan. And the poem that I am going to take up today is Thomas Gray's Elegy written in a country churchyard. But before I go into the details of this poem, let me tell you something about the very term elegy. Elegy, in Hindi we call it Shok Geet. That means it is the song of lamentation which is composed or sung to honor the dead one. Precisely, it was attached with the royalty or the powerful section of the society. But Gray's elegy is unique, and one of the chief reasons behind its uniqueness is that for the first time, someone dared to write an elegy in memory of the common people. So that's why this poem is very remarkable. यानी जो चीज़ पावरफुल सेक्शन के लिए, रिच सेक्शन के लिए लिखी जाती थी, वो पहली बार किसी ने गरीब लोगों के लिए, आम जनता के लिए लिखी. तो बहुत फेमस है ग्रे की एलिजी. लेट्स गो into the details about the poet himself. Actually belonged to the pre-romantic era. Now what's the pre-romantic era? See, there is a transitional phase that comes between the neoclassical age and the romantic age. So this particular time period which binds them together is known as the pre-romantic era. And Gray is regarded as one of the harbingers of romanticism. Now what's the meaning of this particular term? See, harbinger means, if we take this term in Hindi, it is called agradut. That means the one who announces the arrival of something. Like, see, what's the job of a doot? To announce something, to give information regarding something. And agradut, that means the first one. So he particularly is related with this term because in his poetry we find many traits of the romantic era, the coming romantic age, as well as he was not totally free from the traits of the neoclassical era. That's why he is one of the chief poets of the pre-romantic era and regarded as the harbinger of romanticism. He himself was a multifaceted personality. See, no doubt he was a great poet, but also along with this, he was a great letter writer, a classical scholar, and a professor at Pembroke College, Cambridge. So we can very well see that he was a man of many faces. That means his personality had many traits. Gray was an extremely self-critical writer. It's very, very difficult to criticize one's own self, and he was very good at that. That's why he had published only 13 poems during his lifetime. And see, he was even offered the post of poet laureate, but he declined that. And this poem particularly is one of the chief reasons behind his being so famous. If we talk about this particular poem, so the poem was completed by Gray in 1750, though he started to write this poem somewhere back in 1742. So it took near about some 8 years for completing this poem. And people do conjecture that particularly this poem was written by him in the memory of his friend Richard West. It was his death that really initiated his thought process. Originally, the title of the poem was Stanzas Wrote in a Country Churchyard. And the setting of the poem very much tells us that perhaps it was the parish church at Stoke Poges that was somehow the motivating factor behind writing this poem, behind composing this poem. And if we talk about the theme of the poem or the central idea of the poem, it's very simple one. It is everybody dies. और death is the ultimate truth, मौत अंतिम सत्य है. It is round this idea the whole poem develops. Now, before taking up the poem, let me tell you something that in the very beginning we get very beautiful pictorial description of nature, and somehow the poet has tried to balance the beauty of nature with the surrounding melancholy. That means melancholic tone is the basic tone of an elegy. So somehow he has tried to balance the two. यानी शुरुआत से ही, हालांकि नेचर का बहुत खूबसूरत चित्र हमें देखने को मिलता है इस पोएम में, लेकिन एक कहीं ना कहीं बैलेंस दोनों चीज़ों को करने की कोशिश की है, वो निराशा के साथ खूबसूरती. हालांकि ये नया सा कॉम्बिनेशन है, बट हमें इस पोएम में ये चीज़ देखने को मिली है. सो लेट्स हैव द टेक्स्ट ऑफ द पोएम. The curfew tolls the knell of parting day. The lowing herd winds slowly over the lea. The ploughman homeward plods his weary way and leaves the wood to darkness unto me. See, in the very beginning, the poet is presented as a passive viewer. He is just watching the scenario. He is not participating in that. And it is his mere observation that is being recorded here. He says the curfew tolls the knell of parting day. Now let me tell you people that curfew doesn't here has nothing to do with the government ban. Nowadays curfew term is very popular because of the pandemic. कोरोना की वजह से आज यहाँ कर्फ्यू लगा, कल वहाँ कर्फ्यू लगा, हमने बहुत सुना है, बट इस कर्फ्यू का उस कर्फ्यू से कोई तालमेल नहीं है. द कर्फ्यू हियर स्टैंड्स फॉर द इवनिंग टाइम. द कर्फ्यू टॉल्स द नेल ऑफ पार्टिंग डे. दैट मीन्स द church bell is ringing, is tolling. You might have seen that there is a big bell attached to rope or connected with ropes, and it is tolled at the time of at particular time periods in a church. So the same thing is being done here. The knell of parting day. Now here knell word, this term is particularly associated with the tolling of the bell or the ringing of the bell at the time of burial of a person. So in the very beginning, the first line gives us a glimpse of the melancholic atmosphere, surrounding melancholic atmosphere where the poet is at present. So he says the curfew tolls the knell of parting day. The day is parting, the day is soon going to end. That means it's the time of evening. And the church bell is ringing. It is appearing to the poet as if it is announcing the death of the day. That's why knell word has been used. The lowing herd winds slowly over the lake. The herd, it's a very common sight in rural area that at the time of evening, in the evening the herd comes back to its own shed. So that's what is happening there also. They are winding slowly over the lake. That means they are moving on the lake grassland, and they are also creating a kind of sound, the lowing, because animals do not move silently, they create a kind of sound. So that's what they are doing, and they are coming back to their homes or their sheds. The ploughman homeward plods his weary way. Now this line is very beautiful because here a beautiful play upon words has been done, and this is called transferred epithet. अब यहाँ बहुत खूबसूरत सा एक शब्दों के साथ खेल किया गया है. देखिए, द प्लाउमैन होमवर्ड प्लॉट्स हिज वेरी वे. प्लाउमैन, the farmer who is returning back homeward, who is returning back to his home, and he is very much tired. So that's why plod word has been used. He is moving slowly and trying to create a kind of space for his own self as he is moving. That means when the person is very much tired, he moves with difficulty. So that's what the plowman is also doing. He is not moving very swiftly, he is moving slowly, because the reason behind his being so slow is his being tired. So he is tired. The word weary has been used here, but see, weary word, instead of being used with the plowman, it has been used with way. So this is transferred epithet. एपिथेट यानी एडजेक्टिव विशेषता की, एंड ट्रांसफ़र यू वेरी विल नो, किसी चीज़ की विशेषता अगर उससे हटाकर किसी अन्य चीज़ के साथ लगा दी जाए तो वहाँ पर जो प्ले ऑन वर्ड माना जाएगा वो है ट्रांसफर्ड एपिथेट। यहाँ किसान थका हुआ है लेकिन जो शब्द है वियरी उसको लगा दिया गया है वे के साथ। तो अभी क्या हो गया, वियरी वे। हम सब जानते हैं रास्ता नहीं थकता है, थकता कौन है, किसान। लेकिन ये वियरी शब्द को वे के साथ लगा के एक बड़ा मज़ेदार सा कॉम्बिनेशन पोइट ने बनाया है, एक नॉवेल्टी पैदा करने की, एक नवीनता पैदा करने की कोशिश की है। सो दिस इज़ अ केस ऑफ ट्रांसफर्ड एपिथेट। द प्लाउमैन होमवर्ड plods his weary way. The plowman is also very much tired and he is moving back towards his home and leaves the world to darkness and to me. And as I had told you in the very beginning, the poet here is merely an observer. And he says that these all are moving back to their home places, or wherever they reside. They all have a place to go back. But he himself is there observing the things. And by, gradually, the darkness is approaching because it's the time of evening, perhaps twilight, and very soon night will come. So by, darkness is approaching. यानी पूरे पैराग्राफ को अगर हम देखें तो एक तरह की प्राकृतिक सुंदरता के साथ साथ जो चीज़ इस पूरे पे हावी है वो है मेलनकली, उदासीनता। चाहे वो चर्च बेल का रिंगिंग हो, चाहे वो थकान हो किसान की, या जो जानवर हैं उनके लौटने का, मतलब एक निश्चित तरीका। तो routine type of life is being discussed over here, and somehow we do get an impression that the poet is in a melancholic mood. Let's proceed further. Now fades the glimmering landscape on the sight, and all the air a solemn stillness holds. Now, as I told you in the previous stanza, that very soon the night is going to come, night is approaching very fast, and there is darkness which is surrounding, which is engulfing the whole scenario. So he says, now fades the glimmering landscape on the sight. With the arrival of night, everything is being engulfed by darkness. सब चीज़ें अंधेरे में सिमटती जा रही हैं. So now fades the glimmering landscape on the sight. The poet says, the sight up till now, those things which were very much glimmering, which were shining, which were very much visible, clearly visible, now they are appearing to be fading. Why? Because darkness is coming, and all the air a solemn stillness holds, and the surrounding area is very quiet. A kind of seriousness is there, a kind of stillness is there. That means no movement is there. Only the peculiar sounds of evening can be heard, that the poet will discuss later on. But at present, there is a kind of quietness. And you know very well that when we are in a rural area, and at the time of evening, the movements get restricted because there are not much, we don't have much facilities over there, no, the electricity supply and all that. So there are issues regarding that. So perhaps there is a kind of stillness. So that's what the poet is also saying, that very soon with the arrival of the night, whatever was shining up till now, whatever was visible up till now, that is getting faded, that is fading. और सारी हवा में एक गंभीरता है, एक चुप्पी है, खामोशी है. Save where the beetle wheels his droning flight. But there are sounds audible. We very well know that certain insects and certain birds are there which have a kind of nocturnal quality. They have a nocturnal temperament, you can say so. So there is one insect called beetle. If you ever got a chance to be there in a rural area or in a countryside or in a village, you might have seen this insect. I mean, it's a very small insect, and especially at the time of evening when the electric bulbs are just lighted on, or when we just light electric bulbs, what happens? They start moving in circles around it. So that's called the droning flight. They create a kind of buzzing sound. A kind of buzzing sound is created by them, and that sound is very much audible because everywhere else there is stillness, there is calmness. So one can hear the sound of the flight of that bird. बीटल छोटा सा कीड़ा जो बल्ब के चारों ओर उड़ता है और एक बजिंग सी साउंड पैदा करता है, उसकी आवाज़ सुनाई पड़ रही है. So the poet says, say, where the beetle wheels his droning flight. See, this line is in connection to the previous one. All the air a solemn stillness holds. Everywhere there is stillness, everywhere there is quietness, nothing is moving, no sound is there, nothing is audible. But, say means but, there is one sound which can be heard very clearly, and it is the sound of the beetle insect. And why is it creating sound? Because its tendency, it has the tendency, it kind of friction is produced when it moves. Friction of its wings is produced, and that creates a buzzing sound. So that sound is audible now. And drowsy tinklings lull the distant folds. Apart from the sound of beetle, there is one more sound, and it is the sound of a tinkling of the bell that is hanging around the neck of sheep, those who are in folds, very much you can say secured in their folds. They are also creating a kind of sound because these animals, sheep, they are drowsy, they are sleepy, and in their sleep, as they are moving their neck here and there, the bells that are tied round their neck, they are being shaken, and that because of that tinkling sound is being produced. So that is also one of the one of the sounds that is audible at that time. यानी बीटल कीड़े के साथ साथ जो अगली आवाज़ सुनाई पड़ रही है वो है टिंकलिंग साउंड, जो भेड़ों के गले में घंटियाँ बंधी हुई हैं उनकी साउंड प्रोड्यूस हो रही है. नाउ हियर अगेन देयर इज़ अ ब्यूटीफुल प्ले अपॉन वर्ड्स. सी ड्राउजी, हु आर ड्राउजी? शीप. But the drowsy word is being used with the tinkling sound. So here again transferred epithet is there because these were the animals who were sleepy, who were drowsy, but this word, their adjective, their epithet is being used with bells. So there again the same thing, the transferred epithet case is there. So in this paragraph, what the poet wants to say, he simply wants to suggest that everywhere there is the melancholic stillness, there is quietness, but there are some familiar sounds that can also be listened, that one can listen also even there. यानी ऐसा नहीं है कि वो कोई एरिया कहीं अलग से है, वो वही नॉर्मल एरिया है, क्योंकि ये जो साउंड्स हैं, चाहे बीटल कीड़े की है या शीप के गले में बंधी हुई घंटियों की, ये कोई अनफेमिलियर साउंड्स नहीं हैं. ये हर जगह, हर एरिया के कॉमन फीचर्स में आप कह सकते हैं होता है. सो हियर ऑल्सो ब्यूटिफुल यू कैन से पिक्टोरियल लाइन्स आर देयर. अगेन लेट्स प्रोसीड फर्दर. Save that from yonder ivy mental tower, the moping owl does to the moon complain, of such as wandering near her secret bar molest her ancient solitary reign. Now there is the third sound, and what is this third sound? It's the sound of the owl, hooting of the owl, that is also very much audible in this stillness. The poet says that the sound, the owl is also creating a kind, it's hooting natural, it's the, you can say, habit of the owl to hoot at night. But being a poet, his you can say mental faculty, his imaginative faculty is at full play. He says that as if it appears to him as if the owl is actually complaining. And because see later in the later lines word molest has been used, that means especially he is talking about she owl. So owl is hooting, it appears to the poet that as if it is complaining to the moon. And why is it complaining? Because people are moving. See, it is in a tower, and the tower is fully covered with ivy. It's an ivy mental tower. That means the tower is fully covered with ivy. And there is the owl, and the owl is hooting. So it appears to the poet as if it is complaining to the moon. And why is it complaining? The natural question is that It is complaining, it is hooting because it is being disturbed. And what's disturbing it? The poet says, people are moving round the tower, and that's what is disturbing the owl. So it appears to the poet as if it is a kind of molestation. They are molesting her ancient solitary reign. And I told you, no, this word molest has been used here for a specific reason, because it very well reflects that the owl is a she owl. That's why molest is normally associated with ladies. If somebody does evil to a lady, you can say durvyavhar, what we call in Hindi. So that is the term that has been used here, and that's why the owl is complaining. सो हर जगह हवा शांत है सिवाय 3 जगहों के। एक जो पहले मैंने बताया आपको कि जो बीटल कीड़ा है वो बल्ब के चारों ओर चक्कर काट रहा है, या बल्ब तो नहीं, हाँ वो जो भी एरिया, सॉरी जो भी सोर्स ऑफ लाइट है उसके चारों ओर चक्कर काट रहा है, तो इट्स करेक्ट क्रिएटिंग बजिंग साउंड। सेकेंड जो साउंड सुननाई पड़ रही है वो है द साउंड ऑफ द बेल, जो भेड़ों के गले में है। और जो थर्ड साउंड है वो है हूटिंग ऑफ द आउल, आउल का बोलना। और पोइट का देखो इमेजिनेशन कितना फर्टाइल है, वो इसको ऐसे ही बताता है कि वो जो शी आउल है वो शिकायत कर रही है चांद से। और किस चीज़ की शिकायत कर रही है? कि लोग जो उसके टावर के चारों ओर से, उसके घर के चारों ओर से घूम रहे हैं, वो उसका जो एंशिएंट सॉलिटरी रेन है। बिकॉज यू नो वेरी वेल नॉक्टर्नल बर्ड्स एंड एनिमल्स दे प्रेफर टू रिमेन सॉलिटरी, आउल इज़ वन सच बर्ड। तो ऐसा लग रहा है जैसे जो पुराने टाइम से वो अकेले रेन करते, शासन करते आ रही थी वहाँ पे, मतलब वहाँ वही आउल ही था उस टावर पे। तो ऐसे लग रहा है एज इफ इट इज़ बीइंग डिस्टर्ब्ड, एंड दैट्स व्हाई इट इज़ हूटिंग, दैट्स व्हाई इट इज़ कंप्लेनिंग टू द मून। सी what you can say, how beautifully he has captured the simple phenomenon, the simple thing, the hooting of an owl, into such beautiful lines. So that is the, you can say, uniqueness of this poem. Let's proceed further. Beneath those rugged elms that yew trees shade, where heaves the turf in many a mouldering heap, each in his narrow cell forever laid, the rude forefathers of the hamlet sleep. Now, as I told you people earlier, that here in these paragraphs, the poet is merely an observer, and he is just giving you his own reflections, what he observed. So here again he says, beneath those rugged elms. Now he is talking about the graves. Those are there in that churchyard. He says, beneath those rugged elms that yew trees shade, where heaves the turf in many a mouldering heap. Now there are trees, no doubts there are big trees in churchyards. So elms and yew, these are very commonly found in churchyards. So beneath those rugged elms and yew trees shade. Now beneath those trees there are graves, and those are not the cemented ones, they are the ones made out of mud only. So you can call them the graves without any tombstone, or without any engravings, or without any decorations, embellishments, simple graves. You just the you can say the mud surrounding that particular area is being raised in order to give it the shape of a grave. So beneath those rugged elms that yew trees shade, where heaves the turf in many a mouldering heap. Now the poet points out towards the trees, elm and yew trees, and beneath those trees there are graves. So he says, beneath those trees, in the shade of those trees, in many a mouldering heap, there are graves which are in a deteriorating condition. They are not well kept, because I told you कि cemented नहीं है, पत्थर की नहीं है, तो they are mouldering now, breaking now. That means by and by the weathering process is taking place, and because of that they are losing their shape and size. So and as they are of mud or soil, turf is there on them, that means grass has grown on them, and as the wind is blowing, with the passage of wind over them, they rise and fall, the grass rises and falls. So it appears to the poet as if it is heaving. जो घास उन कब्रों के ऊपर, जो कच्ची कब्रें हैं मिट्टी की, उनके ऊपर जो घास लगी हुई है, एल्म और यू ट्री के नीचे जो ये कब्रें हैं, जैसे हवा चलती है वो घास ऊपर और नीचे होती है. सो इट appears to the poet as if it is the grave is heaving, the turf is heaving, each in his narrow cell forever laid. And what is there, what's so special in that moldering heap? उस बिखरते हुए ढेर में स्पेशल क्या है? It is the grave actually. Each in his narrow cell forever laid. Each here stands for those people, those common people, those people who are no more, the dead ones, the common dead people. So he says each in his narrow cell forever laid. इन सभी कब्रों में, इन सभी बिखरते हुए ढेरों में, each in his narrow cell. Now narrow cell here is the grave. Forever laid, the rude forefathers of the Hamlet sleep. Those people who are living in Hamlet, in cottages, in the surrounding area, their forefathers have been buried in this particular place. And these are the graves of them. And they are also in a very deteriorating condition, because I told you, this whole poem is dedicated to these common people who are no more, these poor people who are no more, and there is no one who could ever give them honor. So the poet, by way of this poem, has actually honored these common people. यानी एक सम्मान दिया है उसने इस कविता के ज़रिए उन लोगों को जिनको शायद कोई भी याद नहीं करता कभी भी, सिवाय उनके घर वालों के. तो द पोइट सेज कि वो एल्म और यू ट्री की शेड में, छाया में, जहाँ घास ऊपर आ और जा रही है, यानी घास उठ और गिर रही है, उन बिखरे हुए ढेरों पर हमेशा के लिए इन गांव वालों के सीधे साधे फोर फादर्स. रूड हियर हैज़ बीन यूज्ड इन द सेंस ऑफ सिंपल. इट गिव्स यू द सेंस ऑफ सिंपल. The simple forefathers, that means the poor people, forefathers of these poor common people, they have been buried in this particular area. So they are sleeping forever. That means I told you in the very beginning that death is the ultimate truth, the ultimate refuge. So here he points out the same thing, that these are the forefathers, these people who have been buried here, these are the forefathers of the common people who are living in the surrounding area, and that too in cottages. Let's proceed further. The breezy call of incense-breathing morn, the swallow twittering from the straw-built shed, the cock's shrill clarion or the echoing horn, no more shall rouse them from their lowly bed. Now these lines are a bit philosophical. See, normally what happens when we don't have the alarm clocks or even our mother to just make us leave our bed in the morning, what happens? When we are in a remote area, the change in the weather conditions or the climate, that tells us that it's the time of morning. See, before dawn, after dawn, one can very well know that it's the time of morning. But what happens in villages? People leave their bed, they get up when the cock crows, or when there is kind of change in the blowing of the wind, when it is laden with incense, or when suddenly the swallows, they start twittering. So it symbolically tells that it is the beginning of the day. Now one has to leave one's bed. So these are the common things which we city walas, we ignore, but these have a certain kind of importance, these have a certain kind of charm for those people who are living in rural areas, and these are the kind of lines which have really made this poem so beautiful. So the poet says, the breezy call of incense breathing morn. That means at the time, in the morning, the flowers bloom, and because of the fragrance of those flowers, the whole breeze that blows at that time, it is incense laden. So the breezy call of incense breathing morn, the swallow twittering from the straw built shed, the fragrant breeze that blows at the time of morning, and the swallow which is twittering at that time, rising up from the straw built shed from its, you can say, night refuge. It is now gathering up in the sky and it's twittering. The cock's shrill clarion and the cocks which crow at the time of morning, or echoing horn, or the horn of the milkman. These are the some sounds, familiar sounds, which one hears at the time of morning when one is residing in some remote area, or particularly in village area. So these are the sounds which are very important, because they tell, somehow they are the, you can say, symbols or signs of the advent of morning. No more shall rouse them from their lowly bed. But these things, according to the poet, do not have any importance for those people who have died. यानी कि सुबह सुबह चलने वाली हवा, या स्वालो चिड़िया का चहचहाना, या मुर्गे की बांग, या मिल्कमैन का जो हॉर्न है, गूंजता हुआ हॉर्न है, नो मोर शैल राउज देम फ्रॉम देयर लोली बेड, ये कुछ भी अब नहीं उठा पाएगा, अब नहीं जगा पाएगा फ्रॉम देयर लोली बेड। वो लोग जो अपने लो बेड यानी ग्रेव्स में, कब्रों में लेटे हुए हैं, उन्हें हम इन चीज़ों से कोई फ़र्क नहीं पड़ता, ये चीज़ें हम उनके लिए कोई मायने नहीं रखती। वॉट ही सिंपली वॉन्ट्स टू टेल दैट दोज थिंग्स विच अपीयर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू अस, और विच हैव अ वेरी peculiar significance unto the living ones, don't have any value for the dead ones. That means these worldly affairs are going to have no effect on those who have died. So that's all for today. We'll be continuing the further lines in the next video, and I think will be very soon I'll be creating a playlist for your benefit. So just keep watching the videos that are going to be uploaded on this particular channel, because it is for your own benefit, students. So stay, I won't say tuned, just keep watching the videos of Gyan Doot. That's all for today. Bye bye from my side.